Hi friends, I'm Vandana from Immigration Advisors New Zealand, and here today for a live session. Have been thinking of it for a very long time. However, the week gets busy and the weekend just managed to do the pending work, and this was an opportunity because today is the Auckland anniversary, so a long weekend for us. And I said, fine, let's do it now. I've been getting a lot of questions, answering individual queries on what leads to residence, what can be done for a faster residence options, whether study is only the option. If I'm overseas, can I can I claim points for my work experience back home, or can I still make to 160 points? Is what is the process for a residence visa in New Zealand? So here I am trying to answer whatever I've been asked before. And as friends join in, I'll keep on answering whatever questions they ask me. Okay. So yes, New Zealand is a country where there is a pathway to residence, and in fact, there is more than one pathway to residence. And what I'm going to discuss today is a pathway towards the skilled migrant category. So what is needed? So primarily, you should have 160 points to be eligible to for your expression of interest to get picked up. So how does it happen? So every fortnight, the expression of interests are picked up, and all the interests that have 160 points get automatically picked up, and then they are checked, verified, and if all the points that are being claimed are fine, okay, then they are invited to apply. Once the applicants are invited to apply, then is the time they have to submit their application, all the documents confirming and supporting whatever points they've claimed. So how do they make it to 160 points? What exactly is the requirement to reach there at 160 points? So your age gets you points. So if you are under 40, so you get 30 points for your age. And then your qualification gives you points. You have, if you've done level 8 or till a bachelor's, then you get 50 points. And a master's degree would get 70 points. So you get points for your qualification. And then you get points for your skilled work experience. So how do you get points for your qualification? Would any qualification give you points? So your qualification has to be A, exempt from NZQA, and you can claim points for whatever level it is assessed at NZQA then. If it's exempt, then whatever level it is exempt at. Or you would have to apply for an NZQA assessment. It could be a pre-assessment result, PAR, or it could be an IQA, International Qualification for Assessment. So it has to be assessed by NZQA before you can claim points. So that's one process. And you should have the English language requirement. You should meet the English language requirement. So at least 6.5 or equivalent bands in IELTS or an equivalent score. So that is what makes you eligible to at least claim points and apply. And then you can claim points for skilled work experience. For those overseas, keep asking me a number of times, can I claim points for my work experience? So one thing which you have to say is, whether your work experience is skilled, you just can't claim points for any work experience. It has to be a skilled work experience first. And second, you should have gained that work experience in a market which is comparable to a New Zealand labor market. So the work experience, if you've gained and there are a list of countries on the immigration website. If you work in one of those countries and your work is skilled, definitely you can claim points. You can claim points, maximum you can claim points is 50 for a 10-year work experience. And your experience should be skilled. That means you should have got that work experience by virtue of your qualification or your work experience. That means that if you are working at a position which is a skill level 1 position at ANSCO, and it is required that you should have completed at least a bachelor's degree to take up that role, then you should have gained that bachelor's degree before you started working in that in that role. So then your work experience has to be a skilled work experience. You can also claim points for your offer of employment or your current skilled employment in New Zealand. This gets very tricky for those who are overseas. They would not get these points unless they have an offer of employment. So they can keep trying if they feel that they are skilled enough for a New Zealand employer to hire them. They can get an offer of employment, or there are options wherein they can come to New Zealand through various other categories, and which would enable them to have an open work visa, so that it gets easier for them to find a skilled employment for themselves. Then we do have points here for partners qualification. Do have points for partner skilled employment in New Zealand. So for all of the friends who are overseas and want to make a calculation on an assessment, if they are reaching 160 points, I would request them to email on the email address given with their complete information, so that I can do an initial assessment and a point calculation and let them know whether they would qualify 160 points or not. And the other option, like I mentioned, so if you're not making 160 points, the other option probably could be, if you are thinking of upskilling yourself, come to New Zealand for the studies. There are certain courses in which if you join, your partners would be eligible for a work visa, your children would be eligible for domestic fee paying student visa, and then after you finish those qualifications, you would be eligible for 3 years of post-study work visa as well. So that gives you an opportunity to come to New Zealand, upskilling in yourself, and then finding employment during that 3 years of post-study work visa duration. Okay, so there's a question. Did you know how long to get student visa for student in Cambodia to study in New Zealand? So if you're applying from overseas, if you're applying from offshore, most of the student visas applications are being processed in INZ Mumbai, and it is taking, the processing time has stretched, is becoming more. So from the applications that we are getting, so probably 2 to 4 weeks, and I don't remember what is the processing time, probably 25 to 30 calendar days. I can check that for you, but definitely the time frames have increased with the workload increasing at INZ Mumbai, which is currently processing all student visas applications offshore except China. Deepak. Hi Deepak. So your question is percentage in bachelor's as low? Can we apply for level 7 or not? Okay. So if your percentage at bachelor's is low, and you've passed, and I presume that you've passed your bachelor's, definitely you can apply. There are some programs, probably graduate diplomas at level 7 or diplomas at level 7, and not every program would have a requirement of an academic percentage or marks. So please email us all your academic qualifications and your certificate, and I'll get back to you with wherever you would be eligible to apply for. You would definitely need an IELTS 6 bands and no band less than 5.5. So if you are meeting the English language requirement, definitely can apply for a level 7 program. Okay, so I was talking about the pathway from study to work to residence as well. From my experience, I've done visas for very skilled people, those who were offshore, could not reach 160 points, and here they were deciding whether they should come for a study to work to resident path or not, whether they should take it or not. And I've done cases where the applicants decided that fine, if you're not reaching 160 points, let's just upskill, let's just study a course in New Zealand. And I've done cases where the students were still studying, and based on their previous work experience and the skills that they already possessed, they were offered employment in New Zealand. The moment they had an offer of skilled employment, they reached 160 points threshold and were able to apply for a residence visa. I've done cases where students, even before they finish their study, have moved on to a residence visa. I've done cases where I have experiences where students are studying and their partners who are already qualified get a job offer, a skill job offer, and based on that skill job offer and their skilled work in New Zealand, they reach 160 points. And while the student is still studying, they get residence based on the partner's work in New Zealand and reaching a 160 point threshold. So when I say there is a path, it doesn't mean you have to finish the study and the 3 years and subsequently after 4 years you would get residence. No, it doesn't mean that way. Anytime, because you're not reaching 160 points and you're lacking on the points which you can claim for a for an offer of employment or employment in New Zealand. And definitely, as soon as you get that, you would reach that points threshold and can apply. I've missed no, I've missed few questions. Okay, so Deepak, the email address, we'll send them to you, or probably you can see on the screen there. Satnam. So your question is, how long is SMC residence application time to process and submission of all documents after EOI is selected? So after your EOI is selected, you are invited to apply. So your invitation could be received within a week to 4 weeks time, depending upon what verification immigration has to do on your expression of interest. And once it is submitted, depending upon what your application covers or includes, the processing time could be as less as 2 months to as much as 6 months. I've had cases where the applications probably was for a job for a teacher and got processed even in a month and a half. So at the initial stage, the applications are separated, and the ones which can be prioritized are prioritized, and the others are in a slightly longer queue, which probably would need a little more verifications. And anything between 2 months to 6 months, I would say, once it is submitted. And definitely another thing which you really have to keep in mind is once you are invited to apply, it is valid for 4 months. You must submit your application within these 4 months, or your ITA would lapse. Another question which clients do ask me is, what happens to my temporary entry visa? So they have a work visa, and does it mean that I can submit my residence and just relax because there's an application in process with immigration and don't have to worry? No, you'll still have to renew your temporary entry visa. You'll have to renew your work visa while your residence is being processed in New Zealand. So that's another question that I keep getting. Okay, so another question which most of the clients ask is, what actually do I need to claim points for my skilled employment? What is skilled employment in New Zealand? So, so you can claim points for your skilled employment if your employment is full-time. Full-time means at least 30 hours a week. It's permanent, ongoing. And if it is a contract, the contract is more than 12 months, and there is a reason why it's a contract employment, not an ongoing employment, and it's most likely to be renewed. Firstly. Secondly, you're getting a remuneration of at least $25 an hour based on the 40 hours of work and 52 weeks of employment throughout the year. And your employment should be in closely relevant to ANSCO 1, 2, or 3. It should closely match the duties of ANSCO 1, 2, or 3 in the ANSCO. So that's again very important. So, and another thing, your employment should be sustainable, they should be genuine. So for this, a lot of information would be needed, or immigration can check on the employer's record to ensure that the employment is sustainable and it's genuine. Okay. So I move on. This is especially for the offshore clients. So how do you decide whether you would reach 160 points or not without even contacting, or at the initial stage for your own assessment? So see, if you have masters or above, that will fetch you 70 points. If you're married and your partner has masters or above, that will fetch you again points. And if you have work experience in a market which is a comparable labor market to New Zealand, probably worth checking. Or if your employment is in an area which is in a skill shortage in New Zealand, which will give you bonus points, probably better to get points calculated. You may reach 160 points and can apply for residence offshore. For others who are not working in a market which is comparable labor market to New Zealand. Mm, for them, if you are working for them, and if you are offshore, if you don't have a job offer in New Zealand, then you can only claim points for your work experience if that work experience was in a comparable labor market, or you were working for a multinational company and the head office of that multinational company was in one of these countries which is a comparable labor market. This gets exempted if you have a current job offer in New Zealand though. Okay, so we have another question. Mm, so hi Pradeep, I'll try and answer. Does immigration does NZ police inquiry after satisfaction of officers with everything, and how long does it take? I'm sorry, I can't get your question. If you mean police clearance check, so PCC is one of the mandatory documents, and you'll have to submit a PCC which is dated less than 6 months with your residence application. I'm sorry if you this was not what you meant. Please email your question and I'll try and answer that. If you've lived in NZ more than 5 years, so what does that mean? So if you've lived in NZ for more than 5 years on a residence visa, you can apply for a citizenship. If that's what you mean. Otherwise, please email me your question. I'll try and answer whatever you meant. For level 7, we do go through dependent. If yes, then what kinds of evidence is needed? So if you mean that whether your partner can apply for a visa, if you're doing a level 7, your partner can apply for a visa, but that will be a partnership based visitor visa. So your partner cannot work in New Zealand while you are studying, while you are doing this 1 year of level 7. After you finish level 7, depending upon where you've studied, if you've studied in Auckland, you will get 1 year of post-study work visa. If you've studied outside Auckland, you will get 2 years of post-study work visa. And during this time, your partner would be eligible for a work visa as well. So Satnam, what was your question? If you lived in New Zealand more than 5 years with SMC, yes. So there is a process, and you can apply for citizenship if you've been a resident in New Zealand and lived in New Zealand for more than 5 years. Okay, so we move on to the more information on the study to resident path. Okay, so what about partnership? Okay, what about partnership visa? I am from Myanmar and my husband lives in NZ. Okay, so if your husband lives in NZ, I would probably need more information on what visa does your husband has. If your husband has a work visa, you would be eligible for a partnership-based work visa, provided you are in a genuine relationship and have been living together or have enough evidence of having lived together. If your partner is on a resident visa, you would also be eligible for a residence visa based on partnership. Again, provided you are in a genuine relationship and you've been living together for last 12 months. That's an additional requirement for a residence visa partnership based on partnership. So if you've been married for more than 12 months, living together for more than 12 months, good, apply for a resident visa based on partnership. If it's a recent marriage, or if you've not lived for 12 months, probably work visa based on partnership would be the first eligibility for you, and thereafter when you live together for 12 months can apply for a residence visa based on partnership. If it's a recent marriage, probably immigration would give you the first visa. You are eligible to apply for a partnership based visa, but if there is a limited evidence of living together because of recent marriage, but the relationship is assessed as genuine, you would be given a general visitor visa for 9 months, giving you an opportunity to come to New Zealand, spend time and live together with your husband before you can apply for a work visa or a residence visa based on partnership. I hope I've answered your question there. Satnam, if we apply for SMC residence, so Satnam, probably I'm not getting your question. If you email me your question, I'll make sure that I answer it, whatever I wanted to ask. So Chintan, hi Chintan, your question there. Can you claim points if you have worked 2 years on employer assisted visa as a supervisor in restaurant? Okay. So you had a post-study work visa, employer assisted, and you worked as a supervisor in restaurant. A tricky situation, I would say yes and no. Yes, if your duties closely align to a manager, not to a supervisor. Because manager is a skill level 2 position for which you can claim points for your skilled employment. However, supervisor is a skill level 4 position. So, for an employer assisted visa, at times, if that employment had a pathway towards residence or if it aligned with your previous qualification, you did get an employer assisted visa. So, I would say probably I'll have to see your job duties that you were doing to give a confirmed or a firm answer. So, if your work experience, the job duties that you were doing in that position is aligning to a manager's job duties, yes, you can claim points. Okay. Satnam, I applied for SMC residence visa and it has been 9 months. Officer asked me for pay slips and I provided it's been 4 months. Haven't heard anything after that, so they are doing police check-in and said they could be verifying the information that they have received. So if it is an NZ police check, they would do on their own. You don't need to provide any information on there. But definitely there would be verifications being done at immigrations, and that means. So just relax. Nothing that you can do except provide them with whatever information they are asking, and as soon as their verifications is over, I'm sure you'll get a response. You can relax because your visa would not be declined without you being given an opportunity to answer. So if there are any concerns, you would be the one to be made aware of that. Mm. So I have that question: how long to get a visa approved from immigration? So really depends on which visa. It really depends on where is it lodged. So the processing time vary based on the visa category and the country of application in which from which country has the application been made. So really cannot give a generic response there on that. So Satnam, the police checks depends on what verifications are being done. So you really cannot expedite that because that information. The New Zealand police check is what immigration takes directly from police. So Dinasha, we got an invitation to apply for SMC without job offer with 160 points. Excellent. So that's what I was referring to. Good. What is the visa we get? So Dinasha, I would request you to send me more information. You can get a residence visa. You can have conditions on your residence visa when you get it. And once I see the documents or more information, I would revert to you on that. Okay. So Satnam, how long does it take for a visitor visa? So again, if you're onshore, probably week, 2 weeks, and if you're offshore, again depending upon which country have you applied for. So more questions there. More questions on the employment in New Zealand, skilled employment in New Zealand. So another thing which I've not covered earlier, but I'll be getting a lot of questions, queries thereon. You can only claim points for skilled employment in New Zealand if the employer is compliant to all the New Zealand policies and procedures. So there are non-compliant employers listed on immigration website now. This step was taken a few months back to ensure that the migrants are not exploited. And if the employer is not compliant, they cannot support any migrant for any application. So if you've been given a job offer, probably good to have a check through them there just to ensure that the employer is compliant. And yeah, that's an additional requirement. And additional requirement is that whether your employment is genuine and sustainable. Again, sustainable is something which the migrants should keep in mind, because if it's a new employment, if it's a new business, then you should make sure that they have systems in place so that they would generate business and your employment would be sustainable. If it is if the business is old, then probably the records will reveal whether the whether your employment could be sustainable, whether the employer can sustain your employment or not. Nitesh, how to get PR if I want to come from Australia? So again, the rules remain the same. If you are an Australian citizen or an Australian PR, probably you can come here and you will be given a residence visa straight away. But if you are on a temporary entry visa in Australia, yeah, the rules would remain the same as any other person. So we know there's a question from you. Hello, ma'am. I have completed graduate diploma in information technology level 7. I'm doing software analyst job in Wellington, but my salary rate is 20 per hour. Can I apply PR with this salary level? So unfortunately, we know if your salary is $20 an hour, it will not be considered skilled. So probably you'll have to work few more months till your salary increases to $25 an hour, because any salary less than that, irrespective of what position you hold, immigration would not consider it skilled and you won't get points for your skilled employment. So, Anne Kate, hi Anne, your question there. I have done cookery level 4 and 5. I am on my post-study job search visa first year. I'm working as a common chef full time and aware that I need 2 years full-time work experience for 10 points, which I will complete my 160 points. I want to ask, is my position fulfilling my experience or I need another position? That's fine. Just see if your job duties relate to the job duties listed in the ANSCO. All done. And if you started working in this position after you completed your qualification, that's all you need. I would suggest send me more information, send me your documents so that I can do an initial assessment and confirm whatever I've said is true. So Jasim, hi Jasim, your question there. I'm interested to go New Zealand, but I can't get proper suggestion. Please, may I get information? Yes, so Jasim, I would request you to send me as much information as possible. So your CV, so your work experience, your documents, so that I can make an initial assessment and get back to you on various options that you would be eligible for. So Manpreet there, I have done, hi Manpreet, your question. I have done graduate diploma in health studies level 7 and currently working as a support worker level 4. How can I be eligible for resident? So unfortunately, the support worker is at school level 4 unless you so this role will probably not make you eligible for a residence visa. Look for community worker or your duties aligning to community worker, uh, probably which is at skill level 2. That will make you eligible and getting $25 an hour. I am aware that most of the students who completed health studies are getting an employment as a support worker. Another option for you there, though not relevant to SMC, is if the employer for which you are working is an accredited employer, and if you have a salary of 55,000 New Zealand dollars or more, probably work to residence is another option for you. So I would say send me your information and I'll see if there's a pathway towards residence. I'll give that suggestion to you. So Pradeep, hi Pradeep, your question there, where can I complain if immigration staff doesn't reply in time? Uh, there you can escalate your case. If you have an advisor acting for you, probably your advisor can interact with immigration. There are immigration generally says if your query is within the processing time, at times they would not revert, but definitely if your application have been um, in immigration for a longer time, which is exceeded the processing time, you have all the right to request for an update. So probably contact immigration, get the details of the person you can complain for, or your immigration advisor probably can escalate it for you. So Galib, hi Galib, nice to see your message as well. Vishal, can we apply residence application under SMC at a position of SME in a call center, which is a subject matter expertise, usually taking care of escalations and assisting team of around 40 to 100. You already have 160 points and an hourly wage rate of. Now, I would say, Vishal, please share your documents with me. I would need more information on your qualifications and your work that you're currently doing, your job duties, and I would give you an answer. Seems like a yes to me, but I would like to see those documents before I confirm. So Gurkirat, can we move to NZ from NZ to Australia? So sorry Gurkirat, I'm a licensed advisor for New Zealand. I will not be able to advise on Australian visas. Uh, Hi Meghna, thank you for your comments. So I think Vishal, thanks for giving me opportunity. Thank you so much, Vishal. Thanks everyone for being here today, for being a part of this live session. And the time is over now. Any other question, please email, and I'll make sure that I revert and I answer. Bye. Take care.